Drag queens and Newport Beach, stories from my life. Drag queens and Newport Beach, stories from my life. Hello, you all. I'm Diana Brienne. And I love to tell little stories from my life, and I often tell little stories from my life. And this one's kind of a funny one. Well, I had been living in California, and I had been living between LA, Palm Springs, but I had come out of a broken romance, and I wanted to kind of start fresh and new. And I was living in Palm Springs at the time. And so I decided that I was going to move to Newport Beach. The issue was, though, I didn't know a soul in Newport Beach, but I knew I wanted to live there. I loved Newport Beach, and I loved the thought of living in Newport Beach. I was young, I was single, and I was going to go back to college. So my money needed to be conserved because I didn't plan on working very much during that time. So I needed someplace affordable. And I decided, rather than try to rent an apartment, which was extremely expensive in Newport Beach, I decided that instead what I would do would be I would go ahead and just find a roommate situation. So back then in the 80s, we didn't have the internet or, to surf the web to find roommates. And we had the newspaper. And so I checked out several different places. I had gone down there for the day. I hadn't moved there yet. And I needed to find a place because I was starting school. And so by the end of the day, I was going to check one more place out that I had found through the newspaper. And so I went down this side road, and there was an old car, an older car, not an old one, but an older car, kind of covered with leaves. But the house looked nice. And so I thought, okay, I knocked on the door, and a very nice, younger, middle-aged man came to the door, greeted me, very friendly, very nice, very professional. And I didn't really have any red flags going up at that particular point. And so, long story short, there were other women that were living in the house. He rented out rooms only to women and only to beautiful women. I was to find out later. At least that's what I was told. And he often booted women out, especially if they had a boyfriend. I was to find that out later too. I didn't know any of this at the time. So I gave him my deposit and the first month's rent and everything like that. And I headed back for Palm Springs, put all my furniture in storage, and I brought back with me my personal effects. And so my car was filled to the top. And when I got there, I was carrying my belongings into the house, and one of the roommates was moving out, and she was with her boyfriend, and she stared at me, and she looked at me directly in my eyes, and she said, "Get out of here fast." Well, that sent chills up and down me, and I knew something wasn't right, but I didn't know exactly what it was. She was later to call me once I had my phone connected up. I can't remember how she got my number, but she did. And she called me, and she told me a bit more details that he really, he rented rooms in order to find a girlfriend. And if, we weren't interested in him, then he booted us out. Well, over the next couple of weeks, all of the other women moved out. So it was just me living there. And, I was very nice with him, and he was very nice to me, but he became more and more possessive. My mother came to visit me. He was overly attentive to my mother, put house slippers on her feet and, just babied her, which was nice. She liked that, but it was over the top. And I knew it was over the top. Everything he did was kind of over the top. I noticed like my undergarments was starting to be missing. I noticed that my phone felt like it was tapped, like somebody had tapped into it, that my belongings had been gone through even though my door was locked. And I just became increasingly uncomfortable. And I started to date several different guys while I was down there, just casually dating. But he became very possessive of me and very upset over the fact that I was dating. And so it just became more alarming to me, and I needed to get moved out of there. I was dating a pilot, and the pilot took me over to the airlines that he worked at, and on the bulletin board was roommate wanted ads. So I called on a couple of them, but I only checked out one, and it was fabulous. It was an airline stewardess, an airline flight attendant, and two other roommates that lived there on the beach in a beautiful beach apartment overlooking the water. And so they, accepted me right away, and I paid them my deposit. And then I had to figure out how I was going to get out of where I was and over to here. So in the meantime, kind of backwards a little bit, the little fun part of this story is one night I woke up in the middle of the night to the music of the Bee Gees. The Bee Gees was playing really loud downstairs. I opened up my door a crack to see what was going on, and I saw the man who owned the house dancing in his underwear to the Bee Gees downstairs with a great big heavy set drag queen with a pink wig. And the drag queen turned out to be the taxi cab driver, and they were just having a rip-roaring time. All due respect to drag queens, okay? I've known a couple of them, and they've been wonderful, wonderful people. So this one was just a heavy set one, dancing to the Bee Gees, and they were having a really, really great time. And so now whenever I hear the Bee Gees, I think it's Staying Alive. I always think of that time, and I think about it with laughter in my heart, but at the time I wasn't laughing very hard. So a couple days after that is when I moved, and what I basically did was I had to sneak out in the middle of the night about 3 o'clock in the morning after he finished drinking and got drunk and fell asleep. And the problem was he had a dog. I didn't want to wake the dog up, and the steps going down squeaked. So I had to step over steps, carrying my belongings, carrying my TV, carrying everything, not to wake anyone up because I didn't know how he would react. So anyhow, I got moved out of there. I went to school the next day, and then I moved into the apartment with my new roommates. And I only saw him one time after that, and it was at the post office, and I just kind of took off the other way, and that was it. But I'll never forget the drag queen, the Bee Gees music, and him dancing in his underwear. And so I moved in with these new roommates. They were fantastic. They knew how to have a good time. The one owned a business, and he had a boat, and so we would go out into the Newport Beach harbor on his boat, and we just had so much fun all the time. I used to ride my bike on the boardwalk there, and along the beach, and I would roller skate, and it was just fun. And I loved it. I actually baked a turkey for Thanksgiving, and all the neighbors came, and my roommates wanted the turkey baked in wine. And so I baked that turkey for 18 hours. And that turkey, we call the drunken turkey, turned out delicious. Every morsel of that turkey was gobbled up by the neighbors and my roommates, and so they loved it. So that was my life in Newport Beach. And maybe about 6 or 8 months later, I decided to get my own apartment, and at that time I could afford it, and I got my own apartment, and that has a whole lot of other wonderful stories to tell. And shortly after that, I met my husband. And so, yeah, stories from my life. I love to tell these little stories. Well, I hope you subscribe to my YouTube page, my YouTube channel here. And I'm building up subscribership, and I hope you enjoyed my story. And I have so many more to tell. So thank you for joining in and listening, and I hope to talk to you all soon again. So from my house to your house, God bless you, and I'll talk to you then. Bye-bye.